Alright, let's start this off by saying congratulations to Gil Kane for not screwing up any more of the art since 105. So, yeah, so far he's doing a decent job. On with the review of 1973, issues 116 through 127. Alright, in issue 116, first of all, Spider-Man says, "My spider sense, why is it suddenly tingling? That only happens when danger is near." Those are the words out of his mouth. Now, I don't know what all this other business is about using his spider sense for other things, like tracking people or uh, sensing where people are, all this crazy stuff. He says it plain as day. It only happens when danger is near. So, the villain in this issue is Smasher, which he's a pretty cool villain, but don't really care for the name. The general story for these first few issues in this year were about a guy who's running for mayor, and then this guy who's trying to ruin his campaign, who calls himself the Disruptor, and he's using this creation of his, the Smasher, which is just like some guy that he hooked up with electrodes and made stronger, and the guy's like 10 feet tall and huge, so yeah. And it's no wonder these criminals never succeed, because they're so impatient with everything. Like, he's testing out this new remote control to use with the Smasher, and the scientist who built it was like, "No, you can't use it yet. It's not ready." And the guy's like, whatever. I'm going to use it anyway right now because it needs to be ready now. It's just like, it's not ready. You need to give him some time, all right? Just give him a break. He's inventing impossible technology here. And, you can't just wait a little bit longer for making sure their plan is foolproof, and they can't bother to learn how to use the equipment. Like, the scientist was saying, "Hey, read the manual, or let me tell you how to use it." And he's like, "Nah, I don't have any time for that. I'm gonna use it. I'm just gonna press buttons or whatever." And of course it goes wrong. Anyway, one thing I thought was funny was Spider-Man sees Mary Jane and Harry and Gwen, and they're all like campaigning. He's like, "Oh no, they're campaigning so late, and it's almost midnight before the election day, and it's illegal to campaign on election day after midnight." And it's just like, really, it doesn't even, nothing comes of it, because he just drops down, changes into Peter, and then they all drive off. So it's just like, whatever. But I just thought that was funny. Like, wow, you really feel the need to get worried about them campaigning past midnight? Like, no. And I guess MJ and Harry are back together. I don't know. This whole year, I don't know. It's weird. Like, they'll be like together, but then they like won't be together. Kind of like, they never really say it, but they aren't. Like, she'll be like hitting on Peter or whatever, and then Harry will be like, "Remember, you're supposed to be my girl," and she'll be like, "Remember, I'm your girl." Like, it's just weird. I don't know. Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're not really together. But whatever. I mean, I feel like they're not together though, because in one of the issues in the previous year, she was like, "We had some fun and all, but it was nothing serious." And it was just like, okay. And then the ending of issue number 118 is so similar to The Dark Knight that I wonder if it didn't, at least in a little way, inspire the story of The Dark Knight. Because the disruptor, the bad guy throughout this whole thing, who's trying to ruin this guy Raleigh's campaign, it's revealed that he is actually the guy running for mayor, Raleigh. And and it's like this climactic thing where, like, you see like the little ticker of the election results, and it turns out that, like, Raleigh wins for mayor. And then he's fighting the Smasher, and the Smasher kills Disruptor, and then Spider-Man kills Smasher, and then he unmasks Disruptor, and it turns out to be Raleigh, the guy running for mayor, who had this huge stance on crime, and everybody loved him. And so Spider-Man takes the costume off of Disruptor and then burns the costume and lets the police find Raleigh, just Raleigh, there with the Smasher. And he says that he burns the suit because he feels that regardless of what Raleigh has done, we need myths and heroes and martyrs. And, he can still be a symbol, and isn't that important in the end, So, it's kind of similar to The Dark Knight in the sense of Two-Face, Harvey Dent thing. They need a hero with a face, and so, made him look good. Yeah, so Stan Lee was back for 116, but then he left again for 119, and he pretty much left at that point for good, because he doesn't come back to do the stories or anything. So, but anyway, the next few issues are about the Hawk running amok in Canada, and then Peter receives a telegram from Mrs. Watson from somebody who's looking for Aunt May. He wants for Aunt May to come visit him in Canada or something. And since Aunt May is staying at Doc Ock's mansion while he's in prison, Mrs. Watson gives the telegram to Peter so he can take it to Aunt May. And then Peter overhears some of the guards at the mansion talking to Doc Ock on the phone or something, and here's like, no, we haven't received a telegram yet, and like if they receive the telegram, then they're to immediately notify Doc Ock. And then so he decides to read it instead of give it to Aunt May, and he reads it, and it's from somebody in Canada, and it's like an urgent message for her to come up immediately. And the Hawk's up there in Canada causing trouble, so he's like, well, I can just ask Jameson if I can go up there as a photographer and get some pictures of the Hawk and Spider-Man battling it out. And yeah, it was a pretty good issue. It was pretty fun, and yeah, good story. There was a reference to Superman in issue 120. It just said, when's the last time Clark Kent found kryptonite in his phone booth? I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny. It's referencing Superman. And then the guy who sent the telegram, Peter meets with him at the end of the issue. After all this stuff is done, the Hawk goes away and everything's all good. And then one of Doc Ock's guards shoots the guy. His name is Ramald. He shoots him right in the head, and the guy dies. Like, he just flat out dies. And so you never find out what they wanted. And we never found out. I haven't found out yet, and it's been 8 issues later, so I guess we'll see. Anyway, the next issue shows Harry doing drugs again. does LSD and has a really bad trip again, and so he's in bed, and his father's upset, and turns back into the Green Goblin, and then kills Gwen Stacy. Yeah, issue 121 is the death of Gwen Stacy, and it was pretty sad, and it really, really tears Peter up. I'll tell you that. And I must say, never, ever make Spider-Man angry, because he goes berserk. I mean, he just was relentless with the Green Goblin and following him and beating the crap out of him. And then the Green Goblin death, he dies, and his death in the comic was actually very similar to the Raimi movie. He's standing at the wall in his warehouse, and he's like, half dead already from being beaten to a pulp, and he's telling Spider-Man something, and then he has his remote control glider, and then the glider comes trying to kill Spider-Man, but then Spider-Man sees it and jumps out of the way, and it kills the Green Goblin. So it was pretty similar. Yeah. And then then Harry wasn't at Gwen's funeral, and I was like, why isn't Harry at Gwen's funeral? But we find out later. That in the next issue after Green Goblin dies, issue 123, it features Luke Cage, and I guess it must be the first issue of anything that Luke Cage has ever been in. I really don't know anything about him. All I know is that he does have his own comic, but maybe he did first appear in this issue, maybe not. But yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. And they make a reference to Batman here too. He says, "We're not all rich playboys like Bruce Wayne. Some dudes have to do this for a living." So yeah. And that's one thing, I like about Spider-Man. Like, everybody's, kind of poor. Like, Spider-Man is really poor. Like, he has to pay the rent, and sometimes he doesn't have enough money. Yeah. Anyway, then when Peter goes home in this issue, and Harry's back at the apartment, and he seems pretty upset about something, but you don't really know. And it turns out that he's upset about Spider-Man's death, but also, I think a little bit in Peter's rage when after Gwen Stacy died and he was looking for the Green Goblin after he ran away, Peter went to Harry's house, like, his father's house, and where Harry was in bed there because of the drugs, and Peter just showed up, all in a rage, and he's like, he's not going to be here. And then he looked around, and he wasn't there. And he went up and looked at Harry, and he was like, I can't, I got to go. And Harry was like, wait, no, I need you here now. But Peter didn't stay, so I think Harry was probably pretty upset about that. So he gives him the silent treatment, and basically the issue itself was about Jameson hiring Luke Cage to defeat Spider-Man. Luke Cage advertised himself as a hero for hire, basically doing whatever job. So, yeah. Issue 124 was Jameson's son was a werewolf, and Spider-Man fighting him seemed to help him release his anger about Gwen's death, at least a little bit, because, even after that, he's still, constantly thinking about her, and, still upset and everything, and everybody's telling him to, snap out of it, or, get over it, or whatever, and it's just like, it's not all that simple. it's the death of a loved one. Can't really get over that. And in issue 125, the continuation of that werewolf story, uh, you know, only Jameson could get angry at his own son for turning into a werewolf, because he figures out that it was his son. He goes over to his apartment and he sees him, laying on the couch with the clothes that the werewolf was wearing. And he's like, I knew it was you. Why are you a werewolf? And he's like getting all angry at him, like it's his fault or something. Like it's something that he's purposefully doing. And I found that a little bit ridiculous. But, Jameson's not a happy guy. And in issue 126, the kangaroo is back. Yes, the guy whose superpower is jumping decently high. I just don't understand why he was back. I really just have no idea. Anyway, one thing that was weird about this issue was in the middle of the issue, like page 11 or so, they just started recapping everything that has already happened in the issue. Like, all right, so, Spider-Man was thinking this, and this is what the werewolf did, right? Okay, yeah, right. So then this is what Spider-Man did. Okay, yeah. Then this is what this person... it's just like, why are you recapping? I just read this stuff. I know what's going on in this issue. So, I don't know. Whatever. And then... at the end of the issue, the kangaroo does die because he is being controlled by this crazy doctor who put a thing on his head and, gave him like other super strength and stuff, but told him to like go steal something, and it ended up being that he walks into a room full of gamma rays and just instantly vaporizes. So there, yeah. Hopefully that means that the kangaroo will never ever return to any Spider-Man thing. Then at the end of the issue, Harry becomes the Green Goblin. Yeah. Or at least says that he is now the Green Goblin. He doesn't actually put on the suit. And then in issue 127, the last issue of the year, Harry descends into madness quite quickly after his father's death. Like, it's pretty rapid. There's not much. Like, his father dies and he's already starting to go for it. But probably to do with the drug a little bit. And yeah, Peter's out of cash, and the rent's 2 months past due, and so some advertisers go up to Spider-Man and want him to build a Spider-Mobile with using this new engine that this company is creating. And, so they're going to pay him, and at first he refuses, but then he finds out about the rent, and so he accepts the deal, and he teams up with the Human Torch to build this car. So they didn't actually show what the car looks like, they just showed him working on it. So I guess we'll find out in the next issue what that car looks like. Pretty excited to see how ridiculous it is, because it's probably not gonna be that cool. Anyway, then the annual issue for this year, there wasn't one in 1972, but yeah, the annual one for this year was just another reprint of one of the Green Goblin stories, and I guess it was probably one that took place over 2 different issues, because it was one 40-page issue. So yeah, that is 1973 in the year of Spider-Man comics. And this video is about half as long as the other ones, so pretty happy with myself. Yeah. So I'll catch you next time with the review of 1974, issues 128 through 139. So there should be some pretty good ones, because this one was left in a little bit of a cliffhanger, because the Vulture drops drops Spider-Man over the university campus, and he's falling, and he doesn't have any buildings to shoot web at to save himself, so I guess we'll see how he gets himself out of this one. It's also a little bit of a mystery, because the Vulture killed this girl, and then he was talking about this other girl, Christine, and you're like, who's this Christine? And then he was also trying to kill Mary Jane, and it's all crazy and whatever, so yeah, it's pretty cool.